Hey, welcome back to the Positive Day Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. Jeremy Todd, the host, coming to you from the world headquarters in beautiful Fort Wayne, Indiana. I want to thank everybody around the world listening to the show. And it's just like you got this momentum going. I love momentum. I talk about it all the time on the show. And, motion creates emotion. Momentum creates momentum. And when you start doing all these things and having cool people in your life, good things just happen. So today, special guest today, Mike Iamelli. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, my friend, real quick before we get too far into it, are you a cryptocurrency guy?
Um, I've been told that you're supposed to always be talking about Bitcoin, but never be talking about your Bitcoin.
Oh, is
And
that what it is?
so,
Okay.
yeah, that's because people can rob you, right? So my brother-in-law actually bought us for our engagement half a Bitcoin way back when it was like $200, and I think it's
Nice.
worth like 30,000 today.
Do you know how to
So.
get to it? You know how to access
Yes,
that?
we have a like encrypted
The
thing
wallet.
locked in the
Okay.
safe, like all this
All
stuff.
right. All
Yeah.
right. Cool. So you're in. Okay. Man, I've been all over it today. It's been a lot of fun. There's been cryptocurrencies all over the place. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff, but let's not talk about cryptocurrency today. We want to talk about you, my friend. You are a life purpose expert and brand strategist, and you talk about a story, and I really want to know. This is what's fascinated me the most, and I'm kind of picky about the people I have on my show, so I wanted you
Yeah.
to get on the show to talk about a transition in your life. Now, you were dealing with some medical issues, and then
hmm
you obviously had a caretaker. And I'm just kind of curious. You talk about, and I know you've been on CBS, you've been all over
Sure.
you've been on the news and talking about your story. Tell us a little bit about your story because you fell in love with your caretaker.
Yeah.
And then I'm fascinated how you turned that into a business. Talk about brand strategy and identifying people's purpose. Tell me your story.
Oh, this is a story. Okay. So, early on in life, I was pretty successful. When I was 22, I started a public relations agency with a bunch of executives, and we worked with a lot of celebrities, tech entrepreneurs, healthcare politicians, people like that. But I woke up a few years later. I was in my mid 20s one day, and I was vomiting blood. And as you can imagine, that was pretty scary. I didn't know why I was vomiting blood. It kept going on for a few more days. I couldn't eat. I tried to go into work one day, and I actually realized I had to go to the bathroom. And so I ran to get to the bathroom, and I didn't make it in time. And I shit my pants at work.
Mm.
And so this was the most mortifying thing in my life. I couldn't eat. I was vomiting blood. I was shitting my pants at work, and no doctor knew what was wrong with me. I was going to different doctors. I was getting a few different diagnoses, and I thought I was going to die. And so it got to a point where I couldn't drive myself to, the hospital to get fluids. I couldn't pick up prescriptions. I couldn't even cook for myself at a certain point. And so I had two roommates at the time. One roommate was my older sister's friend who had recently moved to the city and she needed a place to live. So, she moved in with me. And the other was a guy I just knew from college and he also needed a place to live. And my older sister's friend, she wasn't there for most of the week because she got a boyfriend and she spent most of the week at his place. So this guy I knew from college who was on residency as a medical professional, he was the only person around all day. And so he knew the system and he would drive me to appointments. And he kind of became my de facto caretaker. And so he would, sometimes even make me dinner because I couldn't cook for myself. And this went on for about 2 months before I realized I think I feel something for him. And to give you some context, at this point in my life, I had never been with a man, and to my conscious knowledge, never been interested in a man. So part of me was thinking like, am I just like scared I'm going to die? And this is a human within proximity? I didn't really know what to feel about this. And it didn't feel sexual. It didn't even feel romantic, but it felt like there's some intimacy here that's different than our relationship had previously been in. And so, also to contextualize, at this point in my life, I was doing some crazy stuff. Like I thought I was going to die. No one knew what was wrong with me. So I was every day going to reflexology, Reiki, acupuncture, energy healing. I was writing handwritten letters to every member of my family saying everything I'd never said to them before. Like just trying to bring it all out. I figured if I'm vomiting blood, I can't stuff things down. So being in that space, any other time in my life, I probably would have just brushed these feelings under the rug and been like, not that big of a deal. Like, it's probably nothing. I'm just sick and I'm grateful he's taking care of me. But being in that space, I felt like, what if I did die tomorrow? Like, and I don't speak up about this. I should just say something. And I didn't know, like, is he going to punch me in the face? How is he going to react to this, right? Like, this
Yeah.
is a really strange situation. And I just said to him one day, I mustered up the courage and I said, hey, Garrett, and that's his name, Garrett. So, hey, Garrett, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I know we've gotten closer over the last few months. You've been taking care of me, and I feel something here. And the feelings has changed. It doesn't feel romantic or sexual, but I definitely feel something. I want to just talk about it and be honest. And I'm so lucky that Garrett is probably the most thoughtful person in the world. And so Garrett's the type of person that anyone could say anything to, and he'd say, okay, let me sit with that for a moment. And I think that kind of made it feel safer to say this, knowing that that's who he is. And so he did sit with that, and he wrote me a long email back and saying that he kind of felt things, but he didn't know, and he's confused. And I sent the email back, and we talked. For 2 months, we had conversations. And those 2 months led to 2 years of exploring if a relationship can work. So during that time, we still dated women. We were not exclusive with one another. People love to ask me all the time, like, oh, Mike, when you fell in love, I bet it felt so magical and natural kissing him for the first time. No, it felt so unnatural. I have never felt facial hair while kissing a human being before. And this was, something we kissed, and then we didn't kiss for like 2 more months because it was not comfortable. That was too far of a step for us. And so we started exploring, is this even real? And, to give you some context too, I was still sick. And I kind of thought, like, what if I get better and this is just over, right? It's just kind of this like weird phase that we're in. So we weren't telling a lot of people in our lives because we didn't know if it was real. We didn't know if we could even be intimate with one another. We weren't having a physical relationship with one another. And I remember that it took, we were together for about a year. We weren't very physical. And I remember I saw him kiss a woman and I got jealous. And I was like, okay, something's changing here, right? Because like now all of a sudden I'm jealous. And so we started having conversations about that and working through that. And we used, pornography to explore things that we could potentially be interested in without the unsafety of having to physicalize that. And so we did a whole bunch of things. I was going to therapy. And anyway, we decided that this was real. And at the same time, I knew I needed to leave my job. Because if I'm vomiting blood, something is wrong here. So I liked my job. I made a lot of money. I worked with really amazing people in the world, but something was wrong. And so I did what I never, ever, ever recommend anyone listening do. I gave a year's notice at work. And now it was a hellish year, but I thought I was an owner of this company. This is the right thing to do. And in that year, I went to like nutrition school and herbalism school and all the things that were helping me heal. I went to school for these things. So I'm going to multiple schools full time. I'm working full time. I'm navigating my first same-sex relationship, and I'm trying to heal myself. This was by far the most hellish year of my life. But I got through it, and I figured I'm just going to go off and be like an herbalist to Boston's tech entrepreneurs. Because I know what it's like to get sick. I want to help these people not get sick and stressed out. This is what I'm going to do. And so it just kind of so happened that it was December when I left my job, the end of the year, and it was also the deadline we set to start telling our family that we were together. And so this was all kind of happening at the same time. And I'll never forget my dad's reaction because I told my dad, and I didn't know how he was going to react to this. And it was a weird thing to come out about because I wasn't coming out about my sexuality, which I quite frankly didn't understand what it was. I was coming out about being in a relationship. And my dad said, okay, let me get this straight. So you are leaving your job and you found yourself a rich boyfriend. You are so smart. And so I said, okay, thank you, Dad. So it was great. So, I started this business and I was an herbalist to Boston's tech entrepreneurs. And I wasn't making a lot of money. And to be honest with you, I didn't love it. And I thought, shit, like I've just given up this great career. What am I going to do now? And I said, okay, Mike, I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. I've got stories to share. Now, not yet about my relationship because I haven't figured that one out. But I was very successful at a young age. I realized success wasn't what it was cracked up to be. I got very sick. I healed myself and found spirituality. I can blog about this. And so I started a blog. And about 3 months later, that blog got pretty popular. And a publisher reached out to me and said, hey, can I just give you a book deal? And I'm sitting there like, does this happen? Is this a real thing? Yeah, sure. You want to pay me in advance? I will absolutely write for you. So I've got this book deal and I'm thinking in my mind, like, this has got to be my purpose, right? They always say that when you're on your purpose, the universe just hands you things on a silver platter. Like, this has got to be my silver platter. So I write this book and the publisher really pushes me to talk about my relationship. And I said, okay, I've got some time, to figure this out and tell people in my life after I hand in this manuscript. And I hand in the manuscript, and then I think, oh shit. Like, I have to tell people right away because they can't find out on the shelves of Barnes & Noble. Like, they know that this book's coming out. I've got to start telling people about this. And so I said, you know what? I don't want to tell, hundreds of people one-on-one. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a blog post. They can all talk behind my back, and then they can come to me later on. That's much, much easier for me, right? So I said, okay. So I write this, post. I write an article about this, about my relationship. I go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning, and 100,000 people had shared it.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. This was, I can't quite describe to you the feeling of knowing that millions of people are talking about your sex life, having like thousands of emails in my inbox. I had phone calls from NPR and Huffington Post, and all of these people asking me to defend my sexuality when, quite frankly, I didn't know or understand it. Like, this was not something I asked for. This was not something I wanted. And I eventually was like, I'm not taking interviews on this anymore. I'm done. I'm shutting down. I don't want to be this figurehead. And, we had a stalking issue. We had there's one book, fictionalized account of our relationship out there. There's a play that was written. Like, it got really weird. And I was like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And so while all this is going on, I'm still like, I'm not making money. Millions of people are talking about me. I'm on all these places. I don't have a business model. I'm not making money. I've got a book coming out, but I don't even want to do media interviews anymore. I'm a mess right now. And so I thought, all right, Mike, like, you can figure this out. You didn't just leave your job for nothing. Like, the signs were pointing you in a direction. So I became obsessed with life purpose. Like, I've read every life purpose book out there. I have done every training. I am not kidding you when I say, I've heard you will know your purpose by the end of these 60 minutes so many times in my life. Almost never happens, but so many times in my life. And you do enough of this stuff, you kind of get the sense that it all says the same thing. So, figure out what your passions are, figure out what the world needs, find that middle point. Great. Okay. So I start doing this. I'm like, what the hell does any of this have in common? PR and branding and getting really sick and same-sex relationship and book deal and viral article and herbalism and health coach. I have no idea. So I really sat with this for a few days and I realized, oh my God, I get it. It's so obvious. I'm meant to create a blogging course. And this blogging course, it's going to help people get book deals, but it's going to be deep and spiritual. It's going to be about finding your voice, knowing who you are. Okay, this is it. Like, I totally get it. So I had no money, right? Because this is the end of this year. I've been like focusing on myself, trying to heal, trying to figure stuff out. I'm making no money. So I said, it doesn't matter. I'll go into debt right now. I'm going to get the fancy lighting kit and the microphone. I'm going to have a business partner. I'm going to have a web designer. Like, you name it. I put thousands of dollars into this thing, but I knew my purpose with certainty. So I knew it was going to take off. So I go ahead, I do that, put it out into the world, and I think 5 people bought it. It was a colossal failure. Oh, yeah. I was now in debt, and I just thought, I am done. I am so done because the world doesn't want what I have to offer, and I've got to go beg my partners to take me back. I don't know if I have a job at my own company, but beg them to take me back because I get nothing at this point. And so I said, all right, Mike, like, instead, before I leave, I've just got to like flip the script a little bit and host a failure celebration. And honestly, the thinking around that was, I feel like such a failure, but at least I did something to fail. At least I took a risk. Like, I went for love. I had this article. I had this book deal. Like, I did something with my life that's going to be worth something in my eyes. And so my failure celebration was just to celebrate helping other people be successful. So I took the one thing that I was still confident in, which is branding and public relations, and I said, all right, I'm just going to give all these entrepreneurs free branding sessions. Just work I used to do in public relations. I'll do as many as I can fit in a day because tomorrow I'm leaving. And so, I did all these branding sessions, and I'm used to working with, like I said, celebrities or healthcare politicians or tech billionaires. But these were like artists and healers and podcasters and psychics and all types of cool people. And so I do these sessions with them, and I think I did 6 that day. And every one of them said to me some variation of, Mike, this isn't my brand. You explained to me my entire life purpose. Like, everything makes sense. And so I'm sitting here like, what the like, something is wrong with you. I don't know what you're smoking. Okay, cool. I'm glad that it helps you. I have no idea what mine is. And so I had nothing to lose at this point, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to spend 2 hours doing on me what I did on them, because I wasn't talking about their life. I was just talking about their business and mapping things in their business, which is what I would have done for another company. And so I did this, and I came out with 6 words. And these 6 words are aligned, zany, free, unmistakable, successful, and vulnerable. And there was just this light bulb moment. And I realized with Garrett, there's nowhere else in the world I've ever been that vulnerable, or I've ever been that feeling like I can't make a mistake. I'm literally unmistakable, that I can be free and zany. And I realized, hey, in public relations, I felt this, and this, but not this. I know why I was successful, but not fulfilling. And over here, I know why that felt traumatic. And I was kind of having this little epiphany. As I'm having this epiphany, I saw in my email that I had a response from one of the women I worked with that day. And she said, hey, Mike, my friend wants to buy this. Can she hire it? Like, do you do this work for real? What do you call it? And I was like, I don't know. It's not real. I mean, it's branding, but you're telling me it's life purpose. I'll call it sacred branding. Made up that term, just slapped it on that day. No thought to it. So the next day, I didn't call my partners because I had a client. I was making money. So I was going to work for her for a day. Then I'd call them. I had her the next day. The day after that, I had 2 more clients. She referred to me. 3 weeks later, I had 30 clients. And that was 7.5 years ago now. So the work has changed in many, many ways. And one thing I've really come to understand is that the way we look at life purpose is really flawed and creates a lot of shame. And, we can talk a lot about that here. But one thing I'll say is that we all have sensitivities. We have things we experience deeper than anyone else. And those will show up in every story of our lives. And if we can map those and understand them, we can understand what makes us feel purposeful and where we are naturally successful.
That's a lot, my friend.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. And I love how you explained it all. I love the story, the way you told, but I've got a lot of questions I want to unpack real quick.
Shoot them all at me.
When we started closer to the beginning, you talked about letters to your family members, and I'm fascinated with those letters. What does that look like? And how do you start like a letter? Is it a letter to mom? Is it a letter to your buddy from way back in the day? Like, I don't know. That's a crazy cool exercise. And I can understand where your mindset would be like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Let me get this all off my chest. And you decided to write these letters. Talk about some of these letters, who you wrote them to, what's in the letters, and why'd you write them?
Absolutely. So all of my immediate family members, first of all, I did some uncles.
Was it like apologies, or was it like, hey, I'm sorry for this?
Yeah, kind of all
like?
Of the above. It was everything I've never said. So it was, I'm sorry for this, or I apologize for this, or hey, you really hurt me here, or this is a tension we've always had together that, like with my dad specifically, I'll say, I talked about like how I feel like we have always butted heads and didn't connect in ways. And I've always wanted to have a deeper relationship because I'm this like deep thinker and my dad is like very actionable and pragmatic and to the point and not going to depth. And so we never saw eye to eye. And so some of that was just kind of airing that and saying like, if I die tomorrow, what are the things that I would want to have said to you, to be really honest, even if it's going to hurt you. And I remember my dad specifically, he called me and my mom said he was very emotional when he got that letter.
Sure.
But he called me and he said, like, I'm so proud of you and you're so courageous. And I just want you to know, like, everything you said, I'm really thinking about and sitting with. And I, never meant to ever hurt you. And some of it wasn't his fault. Like, he traveled a lot when we were little. And so some of it was you weren't around a lot when I wanted you to be. And so I was just me being really radically honest.
What was it like the first time you actually saw him? Because I think that would be very, very interesting. Now, for a little background on me, I wrote a book about 6 months ago, it came out. And I talked about how I was sexually molested when I was a kid. And no one knew about it. Not a single soul did it. So I just put it out in the book, and I was always scared to death as soon as this book goes out. And then having all these weird first interactions with, hey, I read your book yesterday. And I'm like, I'm like, how does that change our relationship? This is so bizarre. It's so weird. So how did that change some of your relationships that you went through with some of your family members when you come out and say, I guess not only part of the letters, but also part, hey, I'm in a relationship with another man.
Yeah.
How did those relationships come? Because first of all, I'm really proud of you. I think, sometimes people at the very, very highest level also need to tell people that, hey, I'm super proud of you for doing it, because I think you're setting a huge example for so many people out there that may be in the exact same situation that you're in, that you were in, and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know what to say. They're afraid of their family members, afraid of their friends. afraid to have that initial conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's with Garrett. I think that's extremely important as well. Talk a little bit about those relationships after you had these conversations, and did they change? Did they leave? Did they become better, stronger, worse? How'd that affect them?
Yeah, I'm talking about this today, over 7 years later. It would be very different than if I were talking about the day of, because some of it was still fresh. But yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of friendships during this time. I gained some new ones. It was awkward. There were definitely, going into first family party with Garrett after this article came out
Sure.
was uncomfortable to be around some, distant relatives. Now, of course, I had told my parents and some close friends before the article came out, so they did know. But, distant relatives didn't. My aunts and uncles didn't. And, some of these people were more or less supportive than others. And so it was something that I think leaning on your support system, and especially leaning on, like, basically telling my mom, like, I know I might be uncomfortable around these people, like, clean it up ahead of time. Like, try to, like, set the
Yeah.
word or set the tone, or, make it a safe space for me. So really allowing the people I am safe with to do some of that heavy lifting and emotional labor so that I don't have to do all of it, because I know that it's going to be uncomfortable. And there were definitely times, I mean, I had my therapist on speed dial. There were times where,
Sure. Yeah.
things were very, very uncomfortable when I had strangers. Even today, I mean, I got literally right before this an Instagram message from somebody who just said, I read your article years ago and I found you and I just wanted to tell you something. Like, it was really surreal for me in the moment. And so, yeah, it was definitely uncomfortable, but I think what made it so much better was, one, the liberation to know I'm true to myself, two, having a partner in Garrett,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
three, that support network of people who could kind of help support me and kind of make things a safe space before I entered them.
Because I'm sure he went through the same thing.
Exactly.
Just
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like mirroring your situation,
Yeah.
what he had to go through. So that would be great to have someone with you to kind of share the tough times, the struggles, and I'm sure it's very difficult to have those conversations sometimes. But man, I think it's awesome. I'm interested to see the blog post. How do people find that blog post?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I hate to say this, it's been taken down. So you can still find reprints of it other places, but it was originally on Mind Body Green, so they picked up something I wrote for my blog. They said, hey, can we reprint this with a few more details? And so I gave that to them, and it was up there for years. I think it was only this past fall that it got taken down, because they're going 100% peer-reviewed articles, and so they're taking down anything that's a narrative. But there are still copies of it on Good Men Project, on Huffington Post, a few other places. Now, they're not printed in entirety, so I guess these days I can send me an email and I can send you a PDF if you want the
Yeah,
ending
yeah,
of
yeah.
it. But
That's it's
yeah,
too bad that they took that down, because I think the accessibility is important, that people actually find that article or find that blog and actually read it, because I know it would do tremendous value to them as well. You talked about a failure celebration. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Talk a little bit more about that. You said you had a failure celebration to help other people become more successful. What does that look like? Because when you're saying that in my head, I'm like, man, that's what I got to have. I've had so many failures in my life, and I want other people to be successful. I hate those people that, like, when you know somebody, a friend or a family that's extremely successful, oh, they got lucky, or
mhm,
they're, they were just the chosen one, or whatever the case is,
yeah,
whatever bullshit excuse you use for that. But I want to support
yeah.
everybody being successful. So talk a little bit about what a failure celebration would look like.
Yeah, well, it was really a made up thing. So,
I
at the
love it. I
time,
love it.
yeah, at the time, it was just, I felt like such a failure. And I thought, but failure implies that I took a risk, right? There's something to failure. Like, it's not just a negative. And so I said, hey, I did things. Like, yeah, I failed, but I did things that got me to failure, and that's worth something. And so that's really what I wanted to celebrate. And I took the one thing that I was still confident in, which is PR and branding, to say, you know what? I may have failed at taking risks here, but I still have skills that I'm successful at, and these skills can help you take more risks. And that's what I want to do. I want to help all these entrepreneurs take more risks themselves by giving them their brand. And so really, it was just my way to flip the script, use gratitude instead of self-pity in this moment,
Yeah.
and realize that, failure is not a bad thing. It allows us to take risks and grow.
You also mentioned earlier that, and I'm kind of excited about it. You take people through this brand strategy, this developing my purpose. Take me through this, because one of my strengths is I'm extremely vulnerable and extremely
Mm-hmm.
upfront, and
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go through this with you. So hit me with it. Let me go through it with you.
All right. So this is not, I'll admit, not the full thing. It takes me two and a
Of
half
course.
hours.
Yeah.
But, I've been on so many interviews where people ask, like, give me a taste. And I was like, okay. So this is my made up 5 to 10 minute
Perfect.
example to give
Perfect.
people some
I've been
taste.
looking forward to this since we agreed to have you on the show for like months ago.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm jacked up
awesome.
about this.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. So I want you to take a moment and I want you to think across a few different jobs you've had or roles you've had in life. Now, these could be jobs you've had even since back in high school. These could be roles like being a partner, a spouse, a father, a friend, a volunteer. So you don't have to be paid for it, but it's either a job or role you had. I want you to give me one job or role, and I want you to tell me 3 things that you made people feel. And before you do that, I'm going to give you an example. So let's say that you were a teacher and you made students feel engaged with the material. You made them to feel safe to learn. You made them to feel empowered. Okay? So engaged, safe, and empowered.
Okay.
So I want you to give me one job or role and then tell me 3 things you made people feel.
My favorite job and role, hands down, is doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've absolutely loved it. I've been doing it over 4 years now. I absolutely love it. And one of the reasons I absolutely love it is that I allow other people to be vulnerable through me
Mm-hmm.
because I am so vulnerable about
Yeah.
all my struggles in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, filed bankruptcy and all these things. So I allow people to feel vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
allow them to feel safe with their vulnerabilities
Mm-hmm.
because if I can talk about them so public, that it's okay,
Yeah.
that to have the struggles that you struggle with. And then what I also think is that what I'm probably most proud of is that there's no pun intended, no pun intended. There's a positive side to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can overcome any obstacle you set your life towards. And sometimes I fail miserably, but I also succeed a lot as well. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of it is understanding that yes, I'm far from perfect. I'm extremely vulnerable, yet I am still successful.
Beautiful. I love this. So we have vulnerable, safe, positive, successful, beautiful things that you're helping people to feel. Okay. So give me another job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
Um, I a sales manager at a car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
I similar. I feel I give people a safe place to talk because I
Mm-hmm.
think in the automotive industry it's a male dominated industry where you have to be tough and hard ass and you got to talk the talk and be all this, and I don't agree with any of that. I don't think you need to be that person. I also inspire them. I also inspire them to work
Mm-hmm.
hard and become the person that they know they truly can be, no matter what anybody else says. And I am very good at holding people accountable. I think accountability is extremely important. If you say you're going to do something, then you do it.
Beautiful. So safe, inspired, accountable, beautiful things. Okay. One more job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
Well, you mentioned being a parent. Being a parent to me is, and I was almost didn't want to use it because I know it sounds very very cliche. But I am that big thinker like you that I
Mm-hmm.
overthink and overthink and overthink and overthink. And I think that with me, I need to be better at being and showing my vulnerabilities to my children. But I do a pretty good job of that. I show them that their dad is far from perfect, and I struggle. I also am, the rock. I am the consistent one.
Yeah.
I'm always there. I'm always reliable. I'm always going to be there for them when they need me, no matter what ever. And then I'm always going to support them. When you were telling the story about you and your dad having that conversation, that's exactly how I would react if one of my kids said that to me. Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't even doubt it for a second. And I'm always, no matter what they want to do, I'm going to be 100% supportive and be there for them no matter what.
I, I love that. So vulnerable, reliable, supportive, beautiful things. Okay. So now I want you to think of a really challenging moment in your life. A moment that's not re-traumatizing to think about, but something that was just a little bit challenging. It really got you. And you don't have to tell us what it is if you don't want to, but I want you to tell me 3 things you felt in that moment.
That's a good question. Which one do I want to use? There's so many of them. Oh boy, let's see. Yeah, I'll say the one that I still think about quite a bit today is when I filed bankruptcy years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was completely financially broken, busted, had my lights shut out, living in the house with no heat. I felt I felt worthless. I really did. I felt I had no zero direction, like no hope for life. Like I was so disappointed in myself that I didn't. It was a really really dark time of my life, um, and I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed, scared to death, and I don't know what the other one I was that I said, but I was crushed. I mean, literally
Yeah.
crushed. So that was probably one of the worst times. I mean, there's multiple bad times,
For
but I've learned my
sure.
lesson from all of them. I pulled
Mm,
something out. I don't want to try to turn it into positive because that's what I try and do
yeah.
is turn everything to positive side. But at that time, man, I was in bad
Yeah.
shape, man, really really
Yeah.
bad shape.
So that time of feeling, worthless or, really like vulnerable and like things aren't working out for you, crushed completely, hopeless. If you had a magic wand and you could have changed the whole situation and you could make yourself feel whatever you would have rather have felt, what do you think you would have rather have felt in those moments?
Well, I would rather feel like there was hope, and I had no where I had no hope.
Yeah.
I would hope that I would feel excited,
Yeah.
and about the opportunity that was ahead of me, but I wasn't that.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that. It was all dark and clouds around me, and there's a
Of
fog around
course.
my head, I couldn't see. So I wish I could have seen. Wish I could have seen where I am today.
Yeah.
What is it? 15 years later, 20 years later,
Yeah.
whatever it is. If I could see back then to where I am now, it would make me feel a hell of a lot better. That's for damn sure.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That excited, that hopeful. I love it. Okay, one final question. Let's flip it and be a little more positive here. And I want you to think of a really happy moment in your life, a really successful, good, fulfilling moment. And you can tell us what it is if you want. And I want you to tell me three things you felt in that moment.
When I put my book out, that was
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the most important. When it was officially published, was one of the. I mean, and again, cliche. Obviously, kids being born were
Mm-hmm.
amazing. That was great, but really, having that book published from a guy that barely graduated high school, did not go to college,
Mm-hmm.
and was so vulnerable in the book, and saying it gave me something to say that I actually I felt like I accomplished something that I've talked about for years and years and
Yeah.
years. So a sense of accomplishment
Yeah.
that all of my and then the sense of the skeletons in the closet about what I struggled with when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that release of stress and release of pressure, and um, I don't have any of those. Like
Yeah.
I can still feel that weight coming off my shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
saying, damn it, I actually did something with my life that I can be super super proud of. So that was kind of cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, so now all we're going to do is map, and everyone listening can do it right alongside me. We're just looking for patterns. And how many times did we hear Jeremy say vulnerable? Like that word came out a number of times. We
Yeah.
heard safe a number of times. We heard accomplished or successful a number of times, right? We heard, this idea of like hopeful or positive a number of times. So just in my shoddy version right now, if we're mapping and we're playing, we're going to say that some of your sensitivities, some of the things you're most sensitive to in the world are successful, vulnerable, safe, positive, hopeful. And so we're just playing right here. I'm going to guess that some of the happiest, most successful moments of your life felt like you could be really vulnerable and safe to share, that you were really hopeful and positive, that you were really excited about life, and that you were successful and whatever that meant to you. And I'm going to guess that some of those worst moments have all had in common, vulnerable, either being like embarrassed and overexposed or having to protect yourself, being unsafe, being, a failure, being hopeless or not excited about life. Is that
That's right
probably
on the button.
accurate?
Yeah, right on the button. Absolutely.
So what we're seeing here is we now have a formula that was reliable in the past, so therefore is predictable in the future. And what we can start to understand is, okay, the best friendships and relationships in your life are going to be things that make you feel safe and vulnerable and excited and successful. And the ones that don't make you feel that aren't going to be so great. Now, I love doing this with podcasters because I do a lot of podcasts, and two words come up all the time with podcasters: vulnerable or heard. Always. Those two words will always show up in their sensitivities. And I always think, Would doing a podcast be good for somebody who's really vulnerable? Of course it would. That's a fantastic container for you. That's a great space. And especially your podcast has to go into the vulnerable issues, because that's what's going to be even better for you. You're a person who really needs those deep talks. Now, if I were didn't know you from a hole in the wall, and I, let's say that I was pretending to be you for a moment, and you're being interviewed for a podcast, and someone said, Jeremy, right now with COVID and everything, what do you think people need to do? You're kind of like, oh shit, this is a big question, right? There's a lot that goes into that question.
Yeah.
And then so what you might say is you could say, okay, the only thing I need to do right now is be vulnerable and be positive and be safe and be really engaging and successful. What we might say is, listen, I'm going to be vulnerable with you right now. I don't know. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of negativity that we've all seen. But, my role in life is really to find the positive side of things, to really have those hard conversations and find where things are going well right now, where things are good. Because I find that when we can really own our vulnerabilities, when we can really own the hardship in life and find positivity in it, that's when we have the best path for success. That's when we've claimed the power back for ourselves. Now, I just made that up. I took a few words and threw a few buts and ands there. I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but I'm going to guess that's not so far off from something you might say.
That's exactly what I say in every single episode. I mean, that's exactly what I say. I mean, vulnerable. Here's what we're going to do. This is the opportunity. We're gonna make it through, and everything's going to work out in the end.
Exactly.
It always has. It always will.
Once we know your sensitivities, we know what you're most sensitive to in life, where your trauma is going to be because you feel things deeper, but also where your gifts are because you can split hairs. You can see things better than anyone else in the world. You're going to feel purposeful in the spaces and containers that make you feel those things. And you're going to feel, like you're a shell, or you're going to get shy, or you're going to close up when you're in places that don't make you feel those things. And so what we're talking about when we talk about purpose is knowing our unique sensitivities, how we experience life, and then building containers, building spaces that allow us to shine that essence, sharing it with others and receiving it from people. And that's what a purposeful life looks like. I can't tell you purpose. There's no universal purpose. Each of us has a unique gift, a way that we share the world, a way that we see the world, a way that we feel the world. And that's how we can start thinking about purpose.
I love it, brother. That was awesome, man. So good. So good. And I can see, where, someone that is in a boat where maybe they don't know what that is. And I can see how they can completely get with you and benefit relatively. I mean, like you said, a 2-hour session, man, the opportunities and the doors that could open, just the relief and the stress, man, that would be, you'd be just like, wow, this is what we're all about. Because it's so hard. You got so much shit coming at you, all different angles, social media, family, friends, work, all this shit going on. It's hard to clear through the mess.
So I tell that story at the beginning, and it's a long story because I want everyone to see how I'm the all over the place person, right? I have worked with thousands of people. I've never met one person, famous, not famous, who doesn't tell me they're not all over the place. Everybody thinks we're all over the place, right? All of us. And when we look at our stories, well, I had this job, and we do seem all over the place. But there's a common thread always. And that common thread is what we're most sensitive to. And we're going to see, why did this job feel good but not that one? Why was I drawn to this opportunity? Why did I go over here? It's always the same reason. Our life story is telling the same reasons over and over again. We just have to map them.
Mike Iamelli in the house, loving it, brother. Let's get to these questions. I always ask Mike, everyone's on the show. The last 7 questions are going to be the 7 questions from John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. I love these questions. You've answered one of them, but we're going to go over it anyways. Question number 1 is, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
I guess it's that you never have to try to be yourself. If you're trying, it means you're being somebody else.
That's a great quote, bro. I mean, I love that.
Mike Iamelli original over here.
Say it again.
You never have to try to be yourself. If you're trying, it means you're being somebody else.
Man, that's so true, isn't it? Gosh, I see people all the time trying to be someone else and not being who they truly
are.
are.
Myself included. I catch myself all the time, and I've got to...
Dang, that's powerful, brother. Question number 2, which you already answered, was how has failure shaped your life? You can touch upon that again.
Sure, yeah. In many ways, daily, right? Now I think that it's looking at, these things, failure and success are 2 sides of the same coin. Trauma and purpose are 2 sides of the same coin. And when we start to understand that, we're not so afraid of these things. It's just the shadow side of something that propels us and helps us understand ourselves more. And I feel like failure is telling me I'm taking risks, and it's telling me more about who I am and what success means to me.
Life purpose expert and brand strategist, Mike Iamelli. Mike, question number 3?
3. I think we're on 3.
3?
Yep.
Oh, shoot, I skipped number 2. Damn it. What are you learning now is question number 2. We're all mixed up.
That's good. We're doing great. We're doing great. Everything. So I'm just learning. I've been off social media for years because viral article. I didn't want to be too public, but I just got off a call. I'm taking a class on Reels. And so I'm like getting basic and I'm learning how to do Instagram and doing Reels.
Hell yeah. I tried to connect. We got to connect on Instagram too when we get off here. Make sure we do that for sure.
Sounds good to me.
Question number 4, which is one of my favorite questions of all time, is who do you know that I should know?
Oh gosh, so many people probably, but I'm trying to think of somebody that comes off the top of my head. Dina Welch is a person. She's an energy worker, and she is absolutely amazing. Really one of the most talented people I know.
It would mean the world if you could connect Dina and I after this as well. But love to get her on the show eventually. That would be awesome. I love anybody that's going to work with in those fields that people say they're a woo. Those are people that say that they're woo just don't realize they actually work because they're almost scared to do it. But man, there is so much powerful energy out there that I would love to have Dina on the show.
Yeah, sure. And she always talks about her blue jeans and laundry life. Like she's very low key, very down to earth, and saying that energy work's not anything special. Like it is, everyday life.
I'd love to get her on the show. Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
What have I read that you should read? So many books that this is really challenging. But, I'm going to go with a fictional book, and that is Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
That's an old one.
It's an old one. Yes. Yeah, he only wrote 4 books, 5, I guess, if you count his last book after he died. But, yes, it's an old book. It came out just after Great Gatsby, I believe.
Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
Oh, gosh. I don't know what you've done in your life, but I'm going to put a boudoir photo session on there.
I have not done that. That'd be very interesting. A boudoir photo session. I don't know who the hell would want it, but
hey, just for yourself, right? Is one of the single most empowering things I've ever done.
Really? Why?
Yes.
Why is that?
It just, it changes your relationship with your body. Like, I got this done because I didn't feel like I had an empowered relationship with my body. And I thought, nobody's going to see these photos, not even my husband. And I got them back, and I felt so goddamn sexy. Oh my God, my mom's seeing them. They're all over the internet. I don't care who sees these things.
Yeah.
If you go on my Instagram, you'll see plenty of them. And, it just made me realize, like, what am I so afraid of? This is the skin that I am in. I better love this, right? Like, this is my most natural state. Why am I so ashamed? And it's made me just absolutely fall in love with myself.
Oh, that's so awesome, brother. Final question, number 7 is, Mike, how can I add value to you?
This interview's been adding a lot of value, but I don't know. Stay connected, collaborate. There may be some really fun collaboration opportunities down the line.
100%. I would love that. Also, I'm one of those guys that, if you're comfortable enough, we'll exchange cell phone numbers because I love just checking in with people throughout the year just randomly, especially people that are on my show. I just send them a text or call them and say, hey, just thinking of you and all that stuff. Because I think that continued connection for me is extremely important. We had this one conversation and then never talk again. I think that it doesn't. It just adds more value to stay connected over the long term, even if it's just a hello or how you doing, just to check in. I think that makes a big difference. So I'd appreciate that if we can do that.
Let's do it.
That would be awesome. Mike Iamele in the house. Mike, how can everybody find you?
You can find me just on my website, mikeiamele.com. If anyone wants a free exercise just like Jeremy and I did today, you can download a worksheet on my site and a little training with it at mikeiamele.com/map, M-A-P. And you can find me on Instagram because I'm finally getting social. So come hang out with me at just Mike Iamele.
At Mike Iamele?
That's right.
Mike, I appreciate you being on the show, my friend. I know you're very, very busy. You got tons of things going on. But, man, I really enjoyed this interview. And I really enjoyed your vulnerability, your openness, and really your leadership. Because, man, there's so many people that are going to look up to this interview and say, damn, Mike did this. I can do this too. It just – these are the type of messages I love having on the show because – they're difficult conversations to have. And when you're like you, that you can say, you know what, Dan, like I said, if he can have the conversation, I can have the conversation. If he can write a letter to his friends and family and have the conversation with his dad, because I think that would probably be the toughest conversation to have, a conversation with your dad to say, hey dad, I'm with a guy now. I mean, that would be very difficult. Yeah. But again, that's what I respect so much about you, that you did this and you came on the show and you've done this for years and years and spreading this message. I'm going to follow you and I expect everybody else to follow you as well. In the show notes, everybody, we're going to have ways to connect with Mike as well. So don't worry about that. Run down to the bottom of that. Check it out. This video will actually also be on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, man, I don't know what you're waiting for. Get your booty over there, subscribe. I'm really trying to get that YouTube channel going. It'd mean the world to me. Subscribe over there. But hey, I say it in every single episode, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.